Om Tava Kathamritam Tapta Jeevanam Kavipireeditam Kalmashapaham Shravanamangalam Srimadaadatum Bhuvi Grinanti Ye Bhurida Janaha. Sri Sri Ramakrishna Kathamrita, the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, Sri Ma Kathita, recorded and told by M. Sri Mahendranath Gupta, a disciple and apostle of Sri Ramakrishna. কলকাতায় শ্রী ঈশ্বরচন্দ্র বিদ্যাসাগরের সঙ্গে শ্রী রামকৃষ্ণের মিলন. The meeting of Sri Ramakrishna with Sri Ishwarchandra Vidyasagar in Calcutta. That is the topic. Ramakrishna says, জ্ঞানী নেতি নেতি করে বিষয় বুদ্ধি ত্যাগ করে তবে ব্রহ্মকে জানতে পারে. A jnani, a man of knowledge, goes through the path of neti neti. This is a Vedantic path. Paths and paths. Path is Sanskrit. Pantha, and Bengali we call it path. And in English it is path. Americans call it path. So the Vedantic path is to eliminate anything which is not Brahman. This is Brahman? No, no, no. Na iti, no iti, no iti is neti, neti, neti. When everything except Brahman is eliminated, what remains is Brahman. That is the path of knowledge. So neti, neti kore, vishaya buddhi tyag kore. All the worldly clingings, worldly objects, worldly desires, anything that is anatman is being given up, eliminated, renounced, and ultimately you attain Brahman. যেমন সিঁড়ির ধাপ ছাড়িয়ে ছাড়িয়ে ছাদে পৌঁছানো যায়, কিন্তু বিজ্ঞানী যিনি বিশেষ রূপে তার সঙ্গে আলাপ করেন, তিনি আরও কিছু দর্শন করেন. তিনি দেখেন ছাদ যে জিনিসে তৈরি, সেই ইট চুন সুরকিতেই সিঁড়িও তৈরি. নেতি নেতি করে যাকে ব্রহ্ম বলে বোধ হয়েছে, তিনি জীবজগৎ হয়েছেন. বিজ্ঞানী দেখে যিনি নির্গুণ, তিনি সগুণ. The very profound philosophical significance. A jnani eliminates everything which is apparently not Brahman in the beginning. Hence, through the path of neti neti, he attains to Brahman. He gives the example. Suppose you want to reach the roof of a building. He goes to the staircase. Every step you ask the question, is this the roof? No. Next step, is this the roof? No. Next step, is this the roof? No. So, no iti, this is not it, this is not it. Ultimately, after a series of negations of non-Brahman, reach the roof. Is this the roof? Yes, this is the roof. After having reached the roof, you have a different kind of vision. You realize, Sri Ramakrishna says here, that all the stairs are made of the same material of which the roof is also made. The same bricks and the same lime. In those days, cement was not there. All the materials used to build the roof are the same as the materials used to build the stairs. If you analyze, it is only the material. So what is the difference? The roof has a particular shape, particular form, and a name roof. And the stairs have a different kind of shape, form, and the name stairs. So what is the difference? Nama Rupa. This is Vedanta. Vedanta says the only difference between different objects which are in a sense Brahman is the Nama Rupa. The Nama and the Rupa, the name and form which makes for differences, Essentially, the Vastu, the actual thing in itself, is the same in all beings. So Vijnani has a holistic, complete vision of the ultimate reality after having eliminated everything which is not Brahman. He realizes Brahman and also realizes that all the things which he eliminated earlier are also of the same form as Brahman. This is the state of a Vijnani. Swami Turiyanandaji, at the time of his passing away in Mahasamadhi, said, Brahma Satyam Jagat Satyam Sarvam Satye Pratishthitam. Brahman is real and Jagat is also real. Everything is based upon truth, the reality. We also know Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya is a famous statement which we know. What is the significance of this? That means anything which is not Brahman, the Jagat, is Mithya. Mithya, once again, we should realize, is a technical term in Vedanta which does not mean unreal. It has been unfortunately wrongly translated as unreal in English, but is actually not unreal, not real too. That which is absolutely real, absolute Sat, is Brahman. What is absolute real, absolute Sat? Trikala Abadhita, past, present and future. What it was yesterday, that is today and that's going to be tomorrow. It's beyond time, it is timeless, therefore beyond space and causation. Brahman is beyond Desha Kala Nimitta, space, time and causation, and therefore infinite, because anything is finite, is circumscribed and limited by space, time and causation. If it is infinite, it has to be one, because there can't be two infinities. If there were, one infinity will limit the other and both will become finite. It is infinite and therefore one. If it is one, it has to be me, because if it's other than me, there will be two, and therefore I am that infinite Brahman reality. Aham Brahmasmi, Tattvamasi, I am Atma Brahma, Prajnanam Brahma, the four Mahavakyas in the four Vedas, called great sayings, Mahavakya, which assert the Atman Brahman identity, the non-difference identity of the individual self and the Supreme Self. Atma Brahma Aikya Jnana. How can Brahman, which is absolute Sat, can become Asat? No, Sat can never become Asat. Asat can never become Sat. Nasato vidyate bhavo nabhavo vidyate satah ubhayor vidrishton tastvanayos tattvadarshibhi. That which is Asat, there is no existence of that. That which is Sat can never be non-existent. So the absolute Sat is Brahman. And what is absolute Asat? Absolutely unreal, mere concept, like Vedanta gives the famous examples. Vandhyaputra, the son of a barren woman. Barren woman is a woman who is incapable of bearing children. So suppose you say son of a barren woman, Vandhya, it's only a mere concept. You know son, you know Vandhya, but they can't come together. It's only a concept. Mrigamarichika, mirage, water in the desert. There is no water in the desert, it's only a concept. So that's mere concept without any reality corresponding to that concept is absolute asat. Now the world, the jagat, is it absolutely sat like Brahman? No. Why? Because Brahman by definition is trikala abadhita satya. It is beyond all time, space and causation. Unchanging, eternal, undecaying, na jayate mriyate va kutaschan ayam bhutva bhavita va na bhuya ajo nitya shashvatoyam purano na hanyate hanyamane sharire. The Kathopanishad, the same shloka has been repeated by Bhagavan, the Bhagavad Gita, with a small slight change. Na jayate mriyate, it is not born, it doesn't die. That means it does not go through the Shadbhava Vikara. 6 modifications are thought of. Jayate, it is born. Asti, it is. Vardhate, it grows. Viparinamate, it changes. Apakshiyate, it decays. Nashyati or mriyate, it dies, it is destroyed. These are the 6-fold modifications, Shad Bhava Vikara, which every created thing has to pass through. Brahman has no Shad Bhava Vikara, na jayate, na mriyate, means all the other modifications are also eliminated. Ajo nitya shashvatoyam purano. It is unborn, it is shashvata, eternal. Purana. Shankara beautifully explains in the Bhagavad Gita Bhashya. Pura api nava iti puranaha. Although it is very ancient, it is also nava, it is new. Continuously it renews itself. Perpetually renewing, appearing to be new at every moment, at the same time it is ancient. That means it is eternally present. This is the nature of Brahman. This is absolute Sat. Is the world like this? The world is continuously changing, subject to decay, subject to death. Our bodies are born, our bodies die. And therefore this world can't be absolute Sat. Is it absolutely Asat? No. Because we see, we feel, we live in this world, we experience this through the senses. It is not like Vandhyaputra or Mrigamarichika. It is experienced through the senses, although it is continuously changing. So it is neither absolute Sat nor absolute Asat. This kind of quasi-existence is called Mithya. The nearest English translation is virtual. Thanks to this corona pandemic for the past 2 years and more, we are extremely used to the virtual interaction, virtual meeting. What we are doing now, I am talking to you, all of you are listening from wherever you are. Anywhere in the world you can watch this and listen and see me on the video. Is it real? Yes, of course, we experience it. Is it absolutely real? No, I am not there. So this quasi-reality between absolute Sat and absolute Asat is called a virtual reality, which is the nature of this world called Mithya. So Brahma Satyam Jagana Mithya. But then why did Swami Turiyanandaji, a very great jnani, a yogi, assert at the end of his life, Brahma Satyam Jagat Satyam? The meaning is, Jagat is Satyam from the point of view of the Adhisthana Brahman on which the Jagat is superimposed. If your vision is on the Jagat, it is Mithya. But if your vision is on the substratum, the Adhisthana, which is Brahman, on which the Jagat is superimposed, as a Brahman, Jagat is a Satyam. An example of Rajju Sarpa is given. Rajju is the rope, Sarpa is a serpent. Suddenly in semi-darkness, if it is absolutely lighted, you will see only the rope. If it is absolutely dark, you will see nothing. So semi-darkness, you suddenly mistake the rope to be a snake and oh, this is a snake. Bring a light and see, oh, it is only a rope. Was the snake absolutely unreal? No, because you saw it. Is it absolutely real? No. When the light dawns, the snake is not there. So the snake, therefore, is called the mithya, quasi-reality, virtual reality. Now, the snake could not have appeared if the rope were not there. This was an important point to note. The snake doesn't just come like that. Because there's a rope laying there, the snake appears on the rope as a virtual reality, as a mithya. So the existence of the snake owes its reality to the existence of the rope. So if you focus your vision on the rope, then the snake is real insofar as the rope is real. The appearance of the snake on the rope is unreal or quasi-real, virtually real, but the rope itself is unreal. Rope itself is real. In exactly the same way, unless the adhisthana, substratum which is Brahman, like the rope, which is a substratum of the snake which appears on the rope, Brahman is the substratum on which the Jagat appears. Jagat comes and goes, constantly changing, decaying, subject to all modifications, is within space, time and causation. Yet the Jagat appears on Brahman like snake appears on the rope. So insofar as the adhisthana or the substratum is concerned, the snake derives its reality, quasi-reality, virtual reality, by being on the rope as a substratum. If it were not for the rope, the snake would never have even acquired the quasi-virtual reality which it has acquired. So similarly, the Jagat which has appeared on Brahman would not have appeared as a real substance as far as it goes, except for the substratum which is Brahman. If the substratum Brahman is removed, the Jagat would simply become absolute Asat. So the quasi-reality or the virtual reality of Jagat is derivable from the absolute Sat or the reality of the Brahman on which the Jagat is superimposed. We should remember, therefore, that the world is not absolutely unreal in the sense of absolute Asat. The reality of Brahman is shining through this Jagat. Therefore, Vijnani Sri Ramakrishna says, after having eliminated all that is not Brahman, eliminating the stairs as not the roof, ultimately reaching the roof and realizing that the same substance as the roof is the same as the stairs also. This realization gives you a complete vision of the truth. The truth is transcendental in one sense, but in another sense, it's also immanent. What is immanence? Immanence is the all-pervasiveness of the truth or reality. You eliminate all this as unreal within time, space, and causation. After having gone beyond that which is decaying, changing, limited by space, time, and causation and finite. Reaching the infinite, you realize the infinite includes and subsumes the finite. The subsumption of the finite in the infinite, or the infinite peeping through the finite, as it were, and expressing itself through the finite, saturating the finite, interpenetrating the finite, subsuming the finite, including the finite, and expressing through the finite is the vision of a Vijnani. He sees the world and sees the same Brahman everywhere, because the substratum of this Jagat is only Brahman. His vision of the world completely gets transformed and metamorphosed. Sri Ramakrishna also used to sing a song. Somebody said, this world is a framework of illusion, a jagat dhokaritati. Then a retort by another person, a Vijnani. The Jnani comes and says the world is a framework of illusion, a jagat dhokaritati. Then the Vijnani retorts, এই জগৎটা হচ্ছে এই জগৎটা ধোকার টাটি নয়, মজার কুটি. This world, this jagat, is not a framework of illusion, it's a mansion of mirth. এখানে খাই দাই আর মজা লুটি. So in this mansion of mirth, I eat and drink and experience enormous joy, which is not the joy of the senses, but the joy of the supreme realization of the interpenetration and the saturation, overwhelmingness, and the enveloping of the great, infinite, joyful reality which is Brahman, expressing through this world, saturating it, and therefore the world itself gets transmuted as Brahman. This is called God in everything. Isha vasyamidam sarvam yatkincha jagatyam jagat. Isha vasyopanit, the first verse. The entire jagat, this world, is to be enveloped and covered by God. It is God, it is the infinite Brahman, it is the infinite reality, a truth which interpenetrates and covers everything. The word used in Sanskrit is otaprota. Otaprota is interpenetrating, enveloping, covering, suffusing. Every particle of this entire universe is suffused, interpenetrated by God. Sri Ramakrishna says in the Gospel, যেভাবে বৃষ্টির জল মাটিতে পড়ে অভিন্ন হয়ে যায় মাটির সঙ্গে, সেরকম চৈতন্য যেন সবকিছু জোরে রয়েছে. Just like the rainwater falls down and becoming one with the mud, you get a mud plus water substance from which water cannot be separated. The water, as it were, has percolated and suffused the mud. A very beautiful expression in Bengali, jore roeche. Jore roeche, meaning that the Chaitanya, Supreme Consciousness, has completely penetrated, interpenetrated, suffused, enveloped, becoming one with this entire universe, so that the universe, as it were, the whole world has been transfused, transmuted, transfigured, metamorphosed as the supreme reality or Brahman. So what is there to reject? What is there to accept? Shankara also says, na heyam na upadeyam. There's nothing for you to accept, there's nothing for you to reject. You are that infinite self. So Sri Ramakrishna says, therefore, here, ছাদে অনেকক্ষণ থাকতে পারে না, আবার নেমে আসে। বিজ্ঞানী দেখে যাকে ব্রহ্ম বলে নেতি নেতি করে বোধ হয়েছে, তিনি জীব জগৎ হয়েছেন। He has become this jiva, all the beings and the jagat, the world. বিজ্ঞানী দেখে যিনি সগুণ, তিনি নির্গুণ। Brahman is considered nirguna, beyond all qualities and attributes, nirvishesha, without any qualifications. And that Brahman is also the saguna with qualities. The nirguna Brahman is called Brahman. The nirguna aspect of reality is called Brahman. And the saguna aspect is called Kali or Shakti. Sri Ramakrishna said, Brahma Shakti Abhed. Kali and Brahman are identical. Because when it appears as the world of reality, it's called Saguna, Kali. And when the transcendental experience occurs, then it's called Brahman. Kali is actually Saguna Brahman, and by the same logic, Brahman could be called Nirguna Kali. The reality, therefore, is Saguna, Nirguna in one. It is not Bheda Bheda. It is not Saguna, Nirguna. Although they are Bheda, there is Abheda. The Bheda Bheda philosophy is very different. Its Advaita is not compromised. The Dvaita is also realized as subsumed in Advaita. This is the state of a Vijnani. The Vijnani constantly eliminating that which is not Brahman through Neti Neti, realizing the highest Nirguna Brahman, comes down, as it were, from that position of the Nirgunatva, the supreme qualityless Brahman realization, and sees the world of duality, world of relativity, the beings and all the objects has to be the same manifestation of the Brahman. Sri Ramakrishna says, the Nitya is Brahman and the Jagat is Leela. And he says, Leelavo Shatto. Leela is also real. Brahma Satyam, Jagat Satyam means Brahman is Satya and Jagat is Leela of Brahman, and as Leela of Brahman, it is Satya. So he replaced the paradigm of the Advaita Vedanta to Shankaracharya, where the paradigm was Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya, Satya and Mithya, is replaced by Nitya and Leela. Leela is also equally real as a Satya, and therefore, as Swami Vivekananda beautifully sang, describing the Swarupa of Sri Ramakrishna himself, Avatirana Bhagavan, Niranjana Nararupa Dhara Nirguna Gunamaya. He is Niranjana, beyond all qualities, Nirguna, Nararupa Dhara, but he has taken a human form. He is Nirguna, at the same time he is Saguna, with qualities. The beautiful song composed by Swami Premeshananda-ji and direct disciples like Swami Brahmananda, Shivananda, they used to be extremely fond of this song. Arupa Shayare Leela Lori Uthila mridula karunavai Adi antahin akhande vilina Maya dhorile manavakai arupasayare lila lari. Arupa Shire. Shire means ocean. Arupa, formless. In the ocean of the formless, Nirguna, suddenly there arose a wave of Leela. How? Blown by the gentle breeze of Karuna or compassion. Adi Antahin, without beginning and end. Akhande Vileen, again going back to the indivisible Satchidananda Supreme Infinite, and out of one's own Maya, the infinite and the absolute, as it were, assumed a human form. That's the secret of Avatara. Ajopi sannabhyayatma bhutanam ishvaropi san prakritim swamadhisthaya swambhavam atmamayaya. Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavan himself says, I assume this human form by taking hold of my own Maya, my own Shakti. Shakti of Brahman is identical with Brahman itself. Shankara himself admits it. There is a beautiful verse in the Bhagavad Gita, 14th chapter, last verse. Brahmano hi pratisthaham amritasya vyayasya cha shashvatasya cha sarmasya sukhasya ekantikasya cha. Very enigmatic, intriguing verse. Brahmano hi pratishtha aham. The Bhagavan Sri Krishna says, I am the substratum pratishtha of Brahman. Very strange. How can that be? The Nirguna has been the substratum of Saguna. The Shankaracharya has a hard time explaining this verse. He says the Aham here can be taken as Nirvikalpa and a Brahman can be taken as Savikalpa, and therefore the Nirvikalpa is the substratum of the Savikalpa. It's somewhat hard to justify this position because Aham, where Sri Krishna means the Ishvara, cannot be the Nirvikalpa in that sense. You may justify to some extent saying there Sri Krishna is identifying with supreme reality as Brahman itself, then he can't be teaching Arjuna. Then he gives another explanation, such a remarkable, beautiful explanation. Comes out with his real form as a Vijnani. Remember Shankara, the Buddha, Sri Ramakrishna, they are all Vivekananda and Holy Mother Sharada, all of them were in a state of Vijnana or Bhavamukha. Pratishtha, Brahmano hi pratishtha, pratishtha, prati upasarga, pratipurvak stha dhatu. One meaning is substratum, another meaning is pravartana, beginning, venturing into something. Beginning of an enterprise is pratishtha, pratitishta. He uses this meaning and says, Brahmano hi pratishtha aham, Brahmanaha of Brahman, Shashti Ekavachana, pratishtha, pravartana, venturing, launching, beginning an enterprise. Who is he? Aham. I am the pratishtha, the beginning pravartana of Brahman. I, as Brahman, start my mission of Loka Sangraha, Lokodhara, rescuing and bringing enlightenment to people. That's Avatara's whole purpose. Awaken the spiritual consciousness of the entire humanity As Swami Shivananda said, this time Sri Ramakrishna has awakened the Kula Kundalini, the cosmic Kundalini, the cosmic power which is lying dormant in all beings. Since he has aroused the cosmic Kundalini, the Kula Kundalini of the whole cosmos, the individual Kundalinis of all beings can easily get aroused through a little sadhana. That's why we are living in very propitious times. The wind of grace is blowing. As Sri Ramakrishna said, the wind is blowing. Now unfurl your sails. Karuna batash boite che, pal tule de. You unfurl your sails and you will smoothly sail over the Bhavasagara, the sea of samsara, transmigration, sea of birth and death. Brahmanah pratishtha aham. Pratishtha pravartanam, beginning, launching of my mission of rescuing all people from samsara, from shoka sagara, from the ocean of grief and delusion, shoka moha, and awakening their spiritual inner consciousness and throwing them, as it were, into the infinite. Yaya Ishvara Shaktiya Bhaktanugrahadi Brahma Pravartate Bhaktanugrahadi Prayojanaya Brahma Pravartate Pratishthate Pravartate Sa Shaktihi Brahma eva aham Shakti Shaktimato Ananyatvat. I am quoting from the Shankara's Bhashya on this verse, Brahmano hi pratisthaham. I owe this to Swami Tapasyananji of revered memory and the present Sanghadyaksha, the most revered president of the order, Swami Smarananandaji, who specifically pointed out this portion of the Shankara's Bhashya when he was teaching it as brahmacharis. Yaya Brahma Shaktya, that Brahma Shakti by which Brahma Pratisthate Pravartate, Brahman begins its mission of awakening the spiritual consciousness and bestowing the highest spiritual realization on all beings. Bhaktanugrahadi prayojanaya pravartate pratisthate. What is the prayojana? Bhakta anugrahadi prayojana. Anugraha, blessing them, gracing them. The Kashipur on the 1st of January 1886, just a few months before he passed away, in Mahasamadhi, Sri Ramakrishna blessed people and said, graced them, Tode Chaitanya hok, Tode Chaitanya hok. Tomader Chaitanya hok. May you all be awakened. May your consciousness be awakened. May Kundalini be awakened. May you attain spiritual illumination. And instantly many of them are singing and dancing, had the vision of the Ishtadevata like mad people. They were behaving, having been intoxicated by a spiritual liquor and charged with some spiritual power of illumination. Bhaktanugrahadi prayojanaya brahma pratisthate pravartate yaya brahma ishvara shaktya sa shaktihi Brahma eva aham. That Shakti is nothing but Brahman, which is me, Sri Krishna says. How is it you, Avatirana Bhagavan, encased in a little body and mind, claim to be that Brahman, that Shakti, that power of Brahman, which is responsible for Bhakta Anugrahadi, blessing of people, gracing people, bringing them spiritual illumination. How can you be that? The answer is Shakti Shakti Mato Ananyatvat. Exactly what Sri Ramakrishna said. You see, all these great acharyas were all in the state of Hamamukha and Vijnana. The language in which they may put it may be slightly different. There is no difference except in some emphasis between what Shankara taught, what these great acharyas taught. They were putting it differently, that's all. Shakti Shakti Mato Ananyatvat. Shankara, for a special purpose, was emphasizing the Nirguna Nirakara Brahman, the supreme unconditioned Brahman, Akhanda Satchidananda, as Advaitic realization as a supreme. But he himself worked so hard to bring succor to people. Bhaktanugraha, how much he did. Such hard work he did. That's why the mantra for prostration, pranama mantra, Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram. Shankaram Loka Shankaram. Sham Karoti iti Shankara. A person who does Sham. Sham is a supreme blessing. What is the greatest blessing that can come to mankind? That the blessing of spirituality, blessing of illumination, blessing and awakening of the higher consciousness. Shankara is a Loka Shankara. He awakened the spiritual consciousness of humanity, which all the avatars did. So he says, Sa Shakti Brahma Eva Aham. That Shakti is me, is identical with Brahman. Why? Shakti Shakti Mato Ananyatvat. Shakti and Shaktiman, power and the possessor of that power are non-different. Ananyatva, they are one and the same, identical. This is the realization that the Vijnani gets. And Vijnani sees the entire world as the play of the Shakti. Chit Shakti, this word is used by Shankara in the Kenopanishad Bhashya. Chit Shakti, the Chit, consciousness, awareness, supreme reality, Jnana Swarupa, is also the Shakti of Brahman. Chit Shakti in Kashmir Shaivism and Vaishnavism of Bengal, this idea is extremely important. There's a Shakti of Brahman, and people like Sri Ramakrishna and Sri Chaitanya emphasized that aspect of Shakti is full of joy. Haladini Shakti, they call it. The Shakti of Brahman, which is full of joy. Brahman is Sat Chit Ananda Swarupa. According to the temperament of the devotee or the preacher or the acharya, one may emphasize the Sat aspect, the existence, Chit aspect, knowledge, or the Ananda aspect. Shankara emphasizes Sat and the Chit aspects. See the same Brahman everywhere, constantly emphasizing Jnana. Shankara's definition of Jnana, we should remember, is Atma Brahma Aikya Abheda Jnana. See, semantic confusion should always be avoided. When Ramanuja uses the word Jnana, he uses it in a very different sense of the knowledge of the Jiva Atman. Is Pratyeka Atman, he calls Jnana. And therefore he says, after Jnana comes Bhakti. Only when you realize yourself as a spirit, as the Jiva Atman, the Pratyeka Atman, apart from the body and the mind, Deha Vyatirikta Atmaswarupa, only then you can have established a relationship with the Supreme Reality or God, who is of the nature of Spirit. Spirit alone can be related to the Spirit. Swami Vivekananda's beautiful lecture, worship of the Spirit by the Spirit. Because the spirit, when you realize as your own being, then only you can long to know the relationship between yourself and the Supreme Spirit. So Ramanuja calls it bhakti, which begins after you attain jnana, which is the jnana of your swarupa, your jivatman. For Shankara, jnana is atma brahma aikya jnana. After you realize yourself the pratyagatman, then straight you violently seize the citadel of the infinite, as it were. You storm Brahma Bhavana, the mansion of Brahman, through the Mahavakyas. I am that infinite reality. Aham Brahmasmi. Whereas Ramanuja's bhakti, the bhakti acharyas, realize yourself as the spirit, then alone bhakti can begin. Then you can have several bhavas, several moods. You think of yourself as a child of the Supreme Reality, child of God, or the Sakha, friend of God. Or you can think of yourself as a servant of God, Dasya Bhakti. Or you can think of yourself as the beloved of God, the Madhura Bhakti. Through various different bhavas or moods, you relate yourself to the infinite reality. The whole secret in spiritual life, spiritual endeavor, is to have a relationship with God. Sri Ramakrishna mentions in the Gospel, in the Kathamrita, so many times. Bhagavan Shange eta bhav petinita have. You should have some kind of a bhava. Bhava is a very, very difficult word to translate into English. Bhava means attitude. Bhava means tremendous heightened spiritual feeling. Bhava means orientation. So you orientate yourself towards God, relate to Him, relationship. Life itself is a movement and relationship, as J. Krishnamurti once defined. What is life? You are constantly moving from one relation to another relationship. The moment you are born, you are related to the world, you are related to your parents, your mother, father, then related to your friends, continuously moving from one relationship to another relationship. In this movement of relationship, can you relate yourself to God? Sri Ramakrishna says in bhakti, which is easy path, you think you are the child of God, He is the father, He is the mother. Pitasya lokasya characharasya tvamasya pujyasya gururgariyan. You are the guru, supreme teacher, you are the pita, you are the father. Mata dhata pitamaha. Bhagavan himself says, He is the mata, He is the pita, He is the pitamaha, He is the grandfather. Tvameva mata ch pita tvameva, tvameva bandhuscha sakha tvameva, tvameva vidya dravinam tvameva, tvameva sarvam mama deva deva. These are famous prayers in which you relate yourself to God. You are my mother, you are my father, you are my sakha, you are my friend, and you are my wealth. Tvameva sarvam, you are my all in all. That means you are constantly longing to get absorbed in that infinite reality, just like a magnet draws the iron filings. You are being constantly drawn to God. Sri Ramakrishna gives a beautiful example. Kamini Kanchana, woman and gold, which is wrongly translated. Kamini is not woman. Kamini is that aspect of woman which seduces man, the seductress. All women are not Kaminis. English is such a poor language. Therefore, there's a movement once upon a time. Swami Tapasyananda and Ranganathan just said, Kamini Kanchana should not be translated woman and gold. It should be retained as it is. You can absorb that word into English, why not? And give a footnote to explain what it is. Thereafter, continuously use only Kamini Kanchana. There's a wrong understanding, many often misunderstanding by people, as if Ramakrishna was a hater of women. No, not at all. He saw women, all women, as a manifestation of the blissful Divine Mother, Jagadamba, the Divine Mother of the universe, full of bliss and consciousness. Anandamayi Ma. He says, senses, sense pleasures, money, all that is like a small magnet which attracts a person in the beginning. Now, when a big magnet, God is attracting you, small magnet completely loses its power. You're being attracted to God. And Vijnani, he says, later on, the bhakta, the devotee becomes the magnet and he pulls God himself. It's a very high state of bhakti, which is called the Vijnana. You realize God is present everywhere, and in the supreme realization of the omnipresence of God, the overwhelmingness, the saturation, the enveloping power of God, in which the entire Jagat is subsumed, you see He present everywhere, and you rejoice and be exceeding glad, as Jesus the Christ said in the Bible. Rejoice and be exceeding glad, he said. Don't avoid this world. This world is a manifestation of the bliss of God. This is the idea of the Vibhuti in the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. You see the Vibhuti of God everywhere. The modern language which we often use is God's signature. The signature of God is everywhere. God creates all this. The Himalayas, Thavaranam, Himalaya. Then God says Himalaya and signs, I am there. You see the signatures of God everywhere, and the human being is the greatest signature of God. He begins with this, remember this. When he explains the Vibhuti Yoga in the 10th chapter to Arjuna, the first verse, Aham Atma Gudakesha Sarva Bhutashaya Sthitaha Aham Adischa Madhyam Cha Bhutanam Antayeva Cha. I am the Adi, the beginning, I am the Madhya, I am the middle, I am the Anta, I am the end. Aham Atma Gudakesha Sarva Bhuta Ashaya Sthita. Ashaya is the heart. I remain in the hearts of all beings as the Atman. This is what Swami Vivekananda picked up based upon the realizations and teachings of his divine Guru, Sri Ramakrishna. Chok bujli tini achen, chok chaile tini no. Do you mean to say you can realize God only with eyes closed? Can you not realize Him with eyes fully open and see the glory of God? When you close your eyes, you enjoy His bliss, the transcendental bliss in Samadhi. When you open it, see the same God is present everywhere. Sarvata panipadam tat sarvatokshiro mukham sarvata shrutimaloke sarvamavritya tishtati. Bhagavad Gita. He is walking with myriad hands, myriad feet, and grasping with myriad hands, and looking at everything with myriad eyes. Sahasra Sirisha Purusha Sahasraksha Sahasrabhat Purusha Suktam. Immanence of God, every eye which sees is God's eye, every mind which thinks is God's mind, every ear that hears is God's ears, every feet, all the feet that walk is God's feet, all the hands which grasp is God's hands, every tongue which speaks is God's tongue. He is saturating, penetrating, overwhelming everything. Can't you see with open eyes the same omnipresent God present there? That is a Vijnani. Vijnani does not run away from the world as unreal. He participates in the world as a non-participating player. He is a fully knowing player. Like Holy Mother, for example, Sharda Devi, She knew fully well, but she was playing the part. Funnily, Sri Krishna was that, Sri Ramachandra was there, Jesus, Buddha, Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother Sharada, Swami Vivekananda, Brahmananda, all of them are playing in this world so happily because the same God is present everywhere. Swami Vivekananda is famous oratory and the spiritual eloquence. He said, what misery can be there in this world when gods are playing with gods? Gods are making fun with gods. Gods are moving with gods. Gods are talking to gods. See the gods present everywhere, and He is present in you, me, everybody. And therefore, I as God playing with you as God. How the whole world gets transformed, transmuted, metamorphosed in divine ecstatic relationship. All the relationships will be transformed, and you see the divine playing everywhere. Therefore, it's called the play or the Leela of God. The transcendence of God, the Satyam, Brahma Satyam, and the immanence of the same God playing through the universe. Jagat is Leela. And Satya and Leela, Saguna Brahman and Nirguna Brahman, Shakti and Brahman are identical, non-different. This vision of the reality being Saguna and Nirguna, Niranjana Nara Rupadhara, Bhaswara Bhava Sagara Chira Unmada Prema Pathar, description of Sri Ramakrishna by Swami Vivekananda. Luminous Bhaswara, Bhava Sagara is the ocean of bhavas, infinite moods. Chiravunmada, ecstatically mad with divine love. Prema Pathar, infinite ocean of prema or divine love. In that, this is the transcendental. In that, Bhaktarjana Jugala Charana Tarana Bhavapar. Dangling there are the two wonderful holy feet of the avatar, by holding which the devotees can cross the ocean of samsara, the Bhavasagara. May all of us be blessed by holding the divine feet of Sri Ramakrishna, the Yugavatara, who is Nirguna Gunamaya, Niranjana Rupadhara, Bhaswara Bhava Sagara Chara Unmada Prema Pathar, at the same time Bhaktarjana Jugala Charana Tarana Bhavapar. May we be blessed and cross this ocean of samsara joyfully, happily, holding his hand, holding his feet, singing with great joy, Jai Ramakrishna. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Om Niranjanam Nityamanantarupam Bhaktanukampathruta Vigraham Vai Ishavataram Parameshamidhyam Tam Ramakrishnam Shirasa Namama.